we'll take.
Sorry?
It'll take some more minutes to start, right?
Absolutely, yes. It's
Okay.
10:30 now, 7 p.m. there. Let's wait for 5 to 10 minutes so people can join, and then we can start.
Okay.
I'd like to test my mic. Can everyone hear me?
Yes. Good morning, Dee.
Good morning.
Morning, Dee. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Hello, Ria. I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name. Oh, hello, nice to have you. Hello, Aman. So it's 9:30 in the US, 10:30 in Brazil, 7 p.m. in India, and sometime in the afternoon in in Nigeria. Mr. Suleiman, what time is it there?
2:30 p.m.
2:30. Okay.
Yeah, 2:30.
We're gonna be waiting for a couple of more minutes, and we're gonna be starting soon, right?
All right, that's cool.
Hello, Samia. Nice to have you here. So while we wait, if you could tell us where you're speaking from, that would be great. We had Sapna say she's speaking from Mumbai. I'm speaking from Brazil. If you could just write on the chat, that would be great. It's nice. India, Charleston, New Delhi, Bangalore. It's nice. Indonesia, that's nice. So we'll be starting in 5 more minutes. Well, actually, someone named host. No, you didn't miss anything yet because I'm really allowing people like 5 to 10 minutes to join. So I was asking where people are speaking from. So you can just let us know. Let us know. Hello. Nice to have you
Hey,
here.
Daniel.
Really nice to have you here today.
Karena Bell. There she is.
Good morning, Susan.
Good morning, Akash. Where are you? Where are you located?
Are you talking to me, Susan?
Yeah.
Charleston, South Carolina, USA.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. I'm in Florida.
Oh, just down the road.
Yeah, right. Very close. Yeah, great.
Well, Daniel, no, you haven't anything yet. You're just waiting 12 minutes. My pleasure, sir. Definitely. Definitely, it's a very nice thing. Maybe the most beautiful name in the world, huh? And we're starting in 3 more minutes.
In progress.
So I guess we should start. So let me just admit this person. So this meeting is being recorded, and we might use some of the recording for some kind of marketing purposes. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I know it's 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 2 p.m., 7 p.m. That's great to have you all from different parts of the world. And I should tell you that whether in a leadership role or an individual role, every person has the opportunity to develop a mindset of resiliency. In today's webinar, we will discuss shifting your mindset from absorbing your environment to being resilient to your environment while striving toward your potential, whether professional or personal. And that's what we're going to be discussing today and developing the mindset of a resilient leader. I'm Daniel Scalera, co-chair of the Did I get muted? Okay. But you could hear me, right?
It was just for a second, Daniel.
Sorry?
It was just for a second. You're back on.
I'm back on. So I'm Daniel Scalera, co-chair at the 500 MBA Club. I'm very happy to be here today. I'd like to welcome Karena Bell. But before talking a little bit about her, I'd like to thank Rahul, our founder and chair, and I'll kindly ask him to tell us a little bit more about the 500 MBA Club. Rahul, thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Daniel. And I think more than any other webinar today, the theme of the webinar that we have, we're talking about leadership. I think it's very close to me. It's very close to how the club started and why the club started. One of the things that we really wanted to redefine for the generation that is going into management education was leadership, because leadership keeps changing. I think if you look at 10 to 12 years ago, the kind of leaders that we saw were political leaders, and we depended on them for everything that goes around us, the things that happen around us. But if you look at your day to day, I think at least 8 to 10 hours in our day we spend in front of a screen. So what we do, how we decide, the things we choose, the people we vote for, depends on the people who are running these organizations. There are different kind of leaders who are running the world today, but definition of leadership has not been changed a lot in terms of management education. So that's where we came up with some courses on our own as well. We decided to build some courses on behavioral leadership, organizational leadership, and we also tried to focus on leadership for women. And when I was going through the profile of Karena, okay, I'm finding it difficult to really pronounce the name, and it doesn't happen often. Can you tell me the right pronunciation?
It's Karena.
Karena. Oh, Karena. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because we have an Indian name which is almost similar, so I was just being conscious of it. But okay, nice name. So I was going through a profile today, and I saw that you were part of a women-owned consulting firm. So I think this is also something that's good for the webinar today, because we can talk about leadership for women, because even if they are sometimes at leadership positions, it's very difficult for them to act as a leader in the society that we live in, or the kind of work culture that we have. So I think there's so many, on so many fronts, I find you the best person to do this webinar. So it's a great honor to have you. And I think once we go through your profile with Daniel, we all will be more mesmerized by you. And we're looking forward to it. I'm happy to be here. And I think I'll learn a lot in this webinar about being a better leader and a better person more than that. So thanks for being with us, Karena.
Thank you, Rahul.
Thank you, Rahul. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a wonderful webinar. We're all going to learn a lot from Karena. And talking to you a little bit more about her, I had to write a little bit because I wouldn't be able to have it all on my mind. So Karena is currently based out of Charleston, South Carolina, USA. She comes to us with over 25 years of corporate executive level experience in the IT and the finance sectors, working with many multinational companies, spanning industries from automotive, manufacturing, finance, software, biotech, and healthcare. Transitioning into serial entrepreneurship in 2018, Karena has founded and co-founded 4 successful companies, most recently co-founding Interview Masterminds with her business partner, Dee Powers, who, by the way, is here today. Thank you for being here, as an executive consultant. Karena is a current board member for Trident Technical College and Envision Lead Grow Foundation. She also enjoys working with startup business and entrepreneurs by mentoring at Increasing Hope Foundation and the Envision Lead Grow Foundation. With over 25 years in leadership roles, Karena has joined us today to discuss what it takes to develop a mindset of resiliency. And by the way, I'd like to thank all those participants who sent us topics, who sent us suggestions of topics like resilience post-pandemic, time management, decision-making, and handling work pressure, how to create resilience in the team without having them to face all adversities, emotional equilibrium under stress, ambiguity and uncertainty, handling stress, setbacks, dealing with failure. And there were some very interesting topics. Really, I'm mentioning a few, but there was also someone who mentioned that a true leader is the one who takes every crisis as an opportunity to do something anew. And definitely this pandemic has showed us that we need to reinvent ourselves a lot. We need to learn, unlearn, relearn. And without much further ado, I'd like to welcome Karena Bell. Thank you very much for being here. She is the founder and CEO of Turtle Pay Solutions. You could also tell us a little bit more, and we are looking forward to learning what it takes to have the mindset of a resilient leader. Thank you very much, Karena.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Rahul. It's a pleasure to be here today. I appreciate you inviting me to your stage. And the topic of resiliency is something I get really excited about because it has been a lifelong journey of my own, starting out very young. But what I love about resiliency is it's something that none of us are born with, and we develop it over time through change, adversity, sometimes tragedy. With the pandemic, the human race was caught off guard with the pandemic. There is no one that escaped some type of stress, and many folks experienced all of the stressors of the pandemic. And, we saw the ill effects that it had on a lot of people and a lot of societies. Many of us are still dealing with the effects of the pandemic and how to move out of it. I don't think we'll ever get back to a place where people have called the norm again. We will get to a new norm, but it's the tools that we've implemented along the way to help us not just survive the pandemic, but truly thrive through the pandemic. And that's what I'd like to talk a little bit more about here today, are what are some of those characteristics that we may have, we may have developed, or maybe we need to identify those to further develop. And when we talk about leadership and resilience in a leader, especially now, so many leaders were looked to when the pandemic happened. And Rahul hit on an excellent point that really resonated with me, as historically leaders are looked to have all the answers and the solutions to every problem. And today, I believe leaders, they are the person that need to make the decision, but the solutions are all around them with the people that they surround themselves with. the people within organizations, outside of organizations. Now, with us being so much more accessible globally, we have knowledge and resources we can tap into at a stroke of a key. So that to me, I saw that as an opportunity, that it just created more opportunity for us to come to solutions even quicker than we did before. And the pandemic was a very unique, continues to be a unique situation for all of us, because none of us have been here before. There is no guidebook to go to. So our leaders from every country around the world was faced with the question, what do we do next? And resilience was tested and continues to be tested. Some of the characteristics I feel of a resilient leader, so the characteristics I've worked on throughout my career, most importantly, mindset. What is your mindset as you enter day to day? Is it a positive mindset or is it a negative mindset? What are you allowing into your mind and in your space, and how you think and how you approach your family every day and your work every day and the challenges that come with that? A positive mindset is key in your attitude, in how you address your work. Fundamentally, every leader should be optimistic. They are in a leadership position. They are trusted to lead the organization or the department where they need to go. And as a leader, you truly need to be optimistic to think that there is always a solution. One thing I say commonly to folks that work with me is there's more than one solution to every problem. It's our responsibility to go out and find it. It may not be comfortable, it may not be elegant, but there's always more than one solution to every problem. And oftentimes through those iterations of trying to get to a solution that you thought was going to be the ultimate solution, you were inspired with other avenues of creativity, of an innovation that took you to a bigger and better solution through that optimistic viewpoint. And it's not an unrealistic optimism. It's an optimism that we will find the solution that we need to solve this problem. Another characteristic of a resilient leader is having control over the situation. I know. Can you believe it? Having control over the situation that you're in. You may not have all the answers, but you do need to have a sense of control of what is going on in making sure that you are allocating the resources, you're allocating the right people, you're protecting the people from outside influences, maybe senior leadership, things like that they need protection from. And a resilient leader, more than anything, has always got to be calm in the storm. When there are significant problems occurring in an organization or a society, there needs to be an anchor of calm that people will look to. People will replicate your actions, your mood, your emotions. If you are a leader in a position, people are looking to you and how they should be responding as well. If you are emotional and irrational, those around you will replicate that, and they will live in that same state as you. So as a resilient leader, as a leader that people will look to, having that calm in the storm, and even becoming more calm as the storm gets more severe, will increase the confidence in those people around you that you do have this under control, regardless of what is happening. There could be 4 different events going on that you're coordinating. Your duty and your obligation is to remain calm for those around you, to assure them that you have a handle on the situation. Even if you don't have the answers, as long as you are moving in that direction towards the answers, that is what you should find confidence in as well. And one of my favorite characteristics is having a never quit attitude. You know, early on in my career, I was asked to be part of a team that was called a red team. And this was a team that was brought in when projects were so complicated, people didn't want to do them, or they were thought that they couldn't be done. And we were brought in with a lot of latitude. We did not have guidelines. We were just told, you need to make this work. You need to solve this problem. With that ethos, you know, we were given huge responsibility with no authority. So we had to go out, we had to create these solutions, we had to find the resources, work with resources, but we had no authority to make them work with us. And through that experience, we were accomplishing things that shouldn't have been accomplished. We were doing things that others thought that we couldn't do. And it was not because we were of significant intelligence or we had any additional resources than anyone else had. We had a mindset that failure was never an option. We had to make this work, and we had to figure out the ways in which we could make it work. And it was with that freedom that I developed a mindset of, and we've all heard the thinking out of the box mindset. We didn't just think outside the box, we lived outside the box. Our mindsets were such that we lived in that creative, innovative space constantly, where we would walk towards challenges. If there was something going on in the organization that was just incredibly scary, this team would walk towards those challenges. We would face them head on, and we would, with the attitude, we could not fail. We must solve this problem. And with that attitude, you have this sense of responsibility to the organization, to your peers that you're working with, that regardless of how I'm feeling that day, or if I'm having a good day or a bad day, my team is counting on me. It's my duty, it's my responsibility, it's my obligation to come today and be prepared and put everything in to what we have to achieve for that day. So as you can see, I get excited about that. And for us and for me, that's something that I've taken with me throughout my career, is I would walk towards challenges. I would work with my leadership and say, I want to learn more about how to problem solve. Can I be involved in this challenge? Can I jump in that fire and help be part of the solution? So to build up my own resiliency, what I did is I prepared myself for when those unexpected problems came to me. And it was my responsibility to find the solution. So with that becomes preparedness. Because people will naturally ask, well, how do I become more resilient? You prepare yourself, put yourself into challenges that you're allowed to fail, because other people didn't have the solution. They're looking for a solution, and go towards those challenges and look forward to failing. And people that know me and work with me, they know I don't use the word failure. In this context, I will, for the sake of the discussion. In general, I flip the word failure to feedback, because everything is feedback until we get to a solution. The only time we fail is when we quit. And so if we're never going to quit, then we're never going to fail. And some people may say, well, that's not realistic. Actually, it is, because you can agree to walk away. You can agree to end something and say, this is not the right way to go. But you were getting feedback to get to that decision. And that's a valid decision. So this is one thing I challenge people to bring into their mindset and their perspective, is switch that word failure with feedback. To give you an example, I have 2 projects, Rahul. I need you to work on one of them. Project A, you're going to fail tremendously until you find your solution. Project B, you're going to get a tremendous amount of feedback until you find your solution. What project would you like to work on?
This sounds like a trick question. I would choose feedback, but I don't think I like a lot of feedback. I like some feedback so I can work through it, because a lot of feedback I won't be able to process, very honestly. Yeah.
And I like feedback too, because failure to me means we stopped. We failed
Right.
at this. We didn't necessarily fail at it. It's feedback that this isn't the right solution yet. But we may have learned something in that process that we can take with us towards the next step, in the next cycle of feedback, And I use that with my staff, my leaders, people that I work with, trying to change that piece of the mindset too, because failure has such a negative connotation to it. I mean, you can feel it in your spine, you can feel it in your stomach when you say, oh, we failed. Or, wow, that was fantastic feedback. That wasn't the solution. Now let's go try something else. Let's go try something else. And it's that mindset that, I'm going to take this project on and we're going to grind through the feedback until we find the solution. And that really helped change.
Karena, I think this has a lot to do with what Daniel has written here on the chat, which is that leaders should shift from being the answer to being a guide, maybe, right?
Absolutely. Because leaders need to make the decision, but oftentimes they don't have the solution. The solution has to come to them through their people, and the people that they're charged with making sure they have the right people in place. A leader's responsibility is to knock down anything that is going to slow down their progress in coming to the solution, and support them in whatever they need. To me, when there is a problem and there's a team of specialists working on it, the leader becomes the servant. They're there to help them, to support them, and give them everything they need to succeed.
That's right. And since you were talking about feedback, we had Kronika, who said that she says, I improved my communication skills while working in an organization just with the power of feedback. And Rahul complimented, saying that feedback is the breakfast of leaders. So that you keep it somewhere there. We have a very nice question, which was brought by Rahul as well, where here Deepka says, why so few and how to have more women business leaders? How can we bridge the gap? So that people are interested in talking about that as well.
How to bridge the gap with female leaders and diverse leaders?
Yes.
Is that the question?
Absolutely.
That's an excellent question, and that is a big answer. That is a big answer. Developing your resiliency is key to that as well, and I can share what I did throughout my career. I was bold in many of the decisions that I made and the actions that I took throughout my career. And there were times when I would have discussions, because regardless of what my role was in an organization, it was always to advocate for what is best for the organization, period. And we've all worked with people that work against that agenda. They have their own agendas or work against that objective. And I always operate under the guise of the integrity of my role. It is my responsibility. And I have gone toe to toe with people and had discussions about we should do this because this is the right thing to do versus what someone else wanted to do. And there were times when I'd had discussions and I walked out and talked to a colleague and said, I might have just, ended my career here after a discussion. That's only happened to me once, where I had a discussion with a CFO in an organization that was based on integrity and ethics, and he did not agree with me, move forward with what we were doing, and a week later, my job was eliminated. But I did not take that personally. It was a business decision, and I knew what I brought to the table, that I just wasn't at the right table. I need to take the value that I had and that I could give to an organization that values what I'm bringing to the table. How do we fill that gap? We continue to train and mentor and coach women and underserved candidates. We have got to pull each other up. We have to, as each of us advances, it's our obligation to help and pull each other up from every culture. Diversity is so important. And in fact, I'm really glad whoever asked that question, I'm really glad you asked that, because when I am faced in a crisis situation, I look for the diverse experts to bring varying perspectives, because that is where you're going to get your best creativity, your best innovation, your best ideas. I don't want people that think like me. I want people that think very different from me, have very different backgrounds, because that's where the brilliance is going to come from in what we do. Even if you're in an individual role, take responsibility and be a leader in yourself, in what you do, in how you act, in how you support others. And as a leader, I think it's very important, it's critical that a leader take responsibility for their actions and their words, first and foremost. If you make a mistake, and you'll make a wrong decision, make a different decision. But don't feel like that one decision that wasn't the right one is something that defines you for life. It doesn't. It defines you for a moment. That moment's gone. It's past. Look forward to, what do I need to do now to accomplish what we need to accomplish? I think too often people take events and they take and internalize it, when in reality, it shouldn't be internalized. You definitely want to assess it. You want to learn from it, but then you want to move forward and keep working towards the progress. The same thing with successes. Sometimes people internalize success for too long as well, where, it might have been the star of your college sports team, and you're still talking about it 20 years later. That isn't relevant. What's relevant is not necessarily what you did yesterday, but what are you going to do tomorrow to help your organization, to help your professional development, to help those around you. So it's a constant path of accomplishment, but not just your own. It's those around you as well, that we all need to work on. That we can do a lot of really cool things individually. We can do amazing things collectively. And that's the type of mindset that will get you to your solutions, and surround yourself with those people that have the answers, that have the expertise and the specialty. You can learn so much from them. Daniel and I were talking before the meeting that when I talk to people, I listen, and I listen to learn, because there's so much there's so much for me to learn from every person I talk to. There isn't a person I talk to that I don't take something away from that further enables me to be a better person, to be a better problem solver, to be a better leader, to be a better colleague. And it's that pursuit of continuous improvement and continuous accomplishment that will never end. The one thing that drives me is fulfilling my potential. And none of us know what our potential is. but I know I'm going to have an adventurous life in my pursuit of filling my potential. And the potential of those people around me, watching them blossom, watching them grow. With the pandemic, we've all been under a lot. And to support, care, and nurture, and help develop other people and watch them grow, that's more rewarding than any money or paycheck could ever fulfill. And to the question of how do we get more women in diverse candidates in those positions, we keep working hard towards it. It will not be easy. You will have to continue to be resilient, build your resiliency, drive through those challenges, because there is no easy road. There is no easy road. Find a mentor or a coach, someone you admire that displays those qualities of resilience that you would like to achieve yourself, and talk to them about that. How do they think about when something happens? What do they think about? What do they do? What's their own internal process? Most successful leaders are happy to share their methods for success because it's their legacy. They want to make sure that success is passed down, and that knowledge and that wisdom. So definitely reach out to people that you admire and ask for that help. Ask for it and let them know. Set your intention. I want to be more resilient. I want to develop more confidence. I want to develop more optimism. I want to walk towards more challenges. Just some aspects of it. Daniel, were there any other questions, or Rahul?
No, so far we're good. Very good.
Okay. Does anybody want to come up onto the stage and talk about anything or have any questions?
Anyone? Deke has a question here. How should job candidates build resiliency when facing objections? That's a very good question.
That's a really good question. When you are in an interview and you're facing objections, first assess, is the objection valid? I assume the objection is around the skill or knowledge you're bringing to the table, Dee? And then if, say, someone's interviewing me and they say, Karena, I really don't think you have that experience that I'm looking for in this particular area. Ask a question. Really, what exactly, are you looking for as far as experience in this area? And ask inquisitive questions to understand where they're coming from. Oftentimes one of our biggest challenges is we miscommunicate. The messages we send are not received in the way that they're intended, or we come with assumptions. Someone's assumption when they're being interviewed may not even be on the job description, but internally they're thinking, I would really like this person to have this type of experience. And I would ask more inquisitive questions about that. If you truly don't have that particular element that they're looking for, is there a characteristic that you have that transitions into the capability? So you may not have that experience, but maybe you have the capability and you just haven't had the opportunity to display that for someone.
That's great. That's absolutely right. Yeah. Any other questions so far? I don't think so.
And while other questions come in, one thing too, as a resilient leader, is helping your team build resilience as well. I think that is a very noble initiative for every leader to take on, because every person will be at a different stage of resilience in the different characteristics that create a very resilient person. And a lot of times confidence can be one of them that folks give themselves less value than what they really do bring to the table or what they recognize. When you see the value in someone, the capabilities, the skills, the talents, the knowledge, support those folks in that and tell them that you see that, you acknowledge that. Hey, Daniel, your idea saved the project. You saved us. Oh my, that was fantastic. You know, and be sincere when you're working with your team. Ask them, what would you like to do? What would, you know, how can we build your strengths? What strengths would you like to work on? Are there strengths you want to work on? And have those conversations with people. And most importantly, as we've all gone through this pandemic, ask your team, what can you do for them? Because we see a lot of very generalized programs being rolled out across larger organizations. But even in smaller organizations, general programs are rolled out. Talk to the folks individually, get that information, get that feedback. They will be honest and they will tell you what they need to be successful. Now more than ever, with folks working remotely, and some people liking it, some people not, there's a lot that each individual is going through that may not be spoken, that you really need to have that empathy for that each of your team members to help them get through whatever challenges that they're going through right now. You know, one thing I remember talking about prior to the pandemic, or as the pandemic hit and we all went into lockdown, is so many people wanted to work remote. They wanted to work from home beforehand. And then when we got there, what they didn't anticipate was that their spouse or their partner would be home, that their children would be home, that they couldn't go out anywhere for an extended period of time. So that really threw a lot of people into a bit of a tailspin in how to best manage that. So that definitely created a lot of stressors and still is, I think, in some areas.
Right. Marina, we have some burning questions here. I think one of them you've just answered, which was written by Susan. How would you help your team members be resilient? You gave some very good insights there. And then we have a question by Krunika, and she asks, with what sort of attitude a leader in an organization should deal with the people who are above him in his hierarchy, like the CEO of the firm? So you are a leader, but you have someone above you. So how do you do that? And then we have some other questions here as well. But
How do you deal with that during adversity? I'm not sure. That's a very broad question.
So Kronika, if you could specify, and while she specifies, we have another question by Somia, who says, how does a leader resolve a moral conflict in which they must choose between listening to their team or doing what they believe is right when participation and collaboration is limited?
I touched on that earlier. I have been in that situation, and you're going to have to look to your own internal moral compass and what you're willing to risk for that. I have fallen on my sword for the right thing, doing the right thing. And like I said, it did not work out for me one time, but be prepared. Be prepared for the consequences of the actions, and ask yourself, what do you stand for? What, is, if it's a moral, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. At the end of the day, you have to be confident in the decision that you make and for the reasons that you make it. I would say listen to your moral compass and let that guide you. I've been there. I have been there where I've struggled with a decision of I'm being told one thing, but I know what the right thing is to do, and I will stand the line on the right thing, but sometimes that is not what unfolds. I don't think that's a black and white answer.
That's right. Absolutely not. Well, Rahul asks here, how can one be more bold and decisive as a leader?
Put yourself in challenges.
And by the way, Krunika has just replied that Rahul's question addresses her point about leader, being the leader and having someone above you, right?
So the previous question was, how can you
become a more bold and decisive as a leader?
Mhm.
And at the same time, what Krunika wanted to know is, so if you are bold, if you are a decisive leader, how to deal with that if you have in hierarchy someone above you as the CEO of a company, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've been in situations like that as well, where my charge was what is the right thing to do for the organization. And I'll give you one example. I had the CIO on speed dial. He and I, this was a multi-million-dollar project. He and I were back and forth. We even had our legal team involved. And I finally got to a point where I said, why are we doing this? We need to stop. We need to pull the cord, stop the bus. We're bleeding millions of dollars. We know this is not the right thing to do. Let's just stop it. In that situation, I was completely transparent with the CIO. He took the information. His decision was not to stop it. We did go further down the road with it. We did spend a lot more money on it. We eventually did stop the project, but after millions of dollars were spent. I took my responsibility to the boundaries that I could. So as an advocate, I went to the CIO. I was completely transparent. I was completely honest, and gave him the information he needed to make an informed decision. And he made a decision that was his and moved forward with it. Do I feel I was bold? Yes, I do, because I told him what he needed to hear. I didn't tell him what he wanted to hear. And I've been in other situations where we were actually, one of our companies was being extorted by a vendor. They had our data and they were not going to give the data up unless we actually paid them. And, again, had very real, honest conversations. And, but I knew that ethically, and the message and the content of what I was delivering was based on integrity. So I felt it was bold because it was not popular. And I knew he didn't want to hear it, but it's what he needed to hear at the time. And we have a very good relationship. We can agree to disagree. And it's through being honest and being credible that you will build your own reputation with leadership. And you may find that your senior leadership may be difficult to communicate with. They could be challenging as a leader. One of my early mentors, he instructed me to find and work with some of the most challenging people I could, because what that did for me was it developed my communication skills. Why is this person difficult to communicate with? It was on me to figure out, how do I communicate with this person to be effective, for them to hear what I have to say, and for them to respect my opinion. And it was through that I really discovered how to identify and communicate with varying types of personalities. In fact, oddly enough, I was assigned to work with some of the most difficult personalities in an organization because nobody else wanted to work with them, or they found them very difficult to work with. I looked at it as a challenge. great. This is going to give me more tools that are going to further enhance my problem solving capabilities. It's going to enhance my communication. This is a different personality that I'm going to master how to communicate with them. So when you see challenges and simply it could be your leader is a difficult person to work with, find out why they're difficult. What's their motivation? What's their driver? Sometimes it could just be flat out ego, and that's a delicate rope to walk. But find out.
That would be my question, Karina. You dealt with something very interesting. How to deal with ego. Like we have egotistical leaders, and how to deal with that. That is definitely needs a lot of resilience from employees. I've already had a CEO who was really egotistical. And just like you, I didn't tell him what he wanted to hear, but what needed to be said. And definitely that was really tough. So I'd like to learn more about you from that perspective.
Well, and sometimes you have to have uncomfortable conversations. I have where I will go to an individual and say, I feel like we are not communicating. I want to get to a point where you and I are communicating very clearly. I put it on the table. I put it on the table and say, help me understand what I need to do to communicate clearly to you. Because I will always look to me first. Is there something I can do better? Is there something I could do differently that would resonate with that person? If I have checked all the boxes that I know of, then I'm going to them and say, you and I need to work together. We definitely, we're on, our objectives are the same. We're going to be working closely together. We've got a lot of major projects, big budget, have that conversation and be transparent. Be transparent. And it's like I said, sometimes the conversations are uncomfortable, but usually on the other side of that, you're going to get clarity one way or another, where somebody's going to say, I don't have time to deal with you, or they're going to appreciate that and take a minute and say, okay, let's talk about this. When someone's ego driven, you may have to feed it. You may have to feed the ego to align with that person. I would not feed it entirely, but that's part of reading a person and understanding a person. What motivates that person? Are they motivated by the success of their team? Are they motivated by the sales of their team? What motivates them? Are they motivated by the revenues? Are they motivated simply by the sheer size of their team? They love hiring people. They love having big teams. Things like that. And then align your communication and how you work with that, while staying true to yourself as well. And I know that might sound contradictory, but you can't lose yourself in trying to align with someone else as well. And that's where you may need to be bold, and you may need to tap into some inner confidence and have a conversation. A conversation can be so powerful if you are willing to put it out first and say, I feel like you and I could really communicate much clearer, or I feel like you have something on your mind we need to talk about. Be the first to extend that olive branch, and then go from there.
Yeah, that's not easy, but
important. It is not. It is not. And that's where, you have to be a little bold. You have to be a little bold. And that's going to come back to your own level of frustration. What is your threshold? Okay, now I have dealt with this long enough. I need to say my piece, maybe pack my box and take my stuff and walk out the door. But and I don't mean to be extreme like that, but there are situations where that does happen. But you do have to, you are brought into a position to fulfill a role that is aligned with the strategic objectives of the organization. If there is something or someone that is creating barriers to your success, you need to address those or get help addressing those, because ultimately it will come back to the success of you in your role, and more importantly, the organization. They're trusting that you are going to fulfill your role to the best of your abilities. If there's something that's preventing you from doing that, or someone, then you might need to call in some help. But I would always defer to having direct conversations with that person first. Again, take responsibility for yourself and for your actions, and move forward with that.
Yeah, that's great. Daniel says, yes, it's a little difficult when there's a lot of risk. No, there's a lot of loss at risk when challenging the higher ups who don't appreciate the genuine challenge. And that's absolutely true, right?
You have to be mindful of your approach in how you present that challenge. Tact cannot be overemphasized. You know, in the manner that you present it, you have to be confident in your message, but how it's delivered is crucial to how it's received. And you may start a conversation like that with, I feel you need to hear this, or, you know, it's the individual. You have to customize that message to the individual. You may be working with somebody who appreciates somebody who's direct, or you might have to sugarcoat things to get your message across. But one thing's for certain is you're not going to change someone. The only thing you can control is how you respond and how you react and how you interact.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, right? It's impossible to change someone, but you can change the way you react to things, the way you perceive things, right? That's right.
You can be a chameleon towards the objectives of your organization. So, you know, and again, when I say that, it's being true to yourself, but also identifying how you need to communicate or how you need to work with somebody towards success, as long as it remains ethical and legal.
Sure. Any other questions? Any further questions? You can raise your hands, or you can just put them on the chat. Well, we have a question here. Would you say that pushing through is more towards grit while resilience is bouncing back?
I would, and I like that word grit. I do, because grit is, I equate that to discipline as well. Discipline and commitment to what it is you're trying to achieve. Resilience really is, how do you respond? How do you respond when you're faced with those challenges? Do you react or do you respond? A reaction is anchored in emotion. A response is anchored in logic. Here in the US, our fire, our police, and our emergency, they're called first responders. And they're not called first reactors. They're called first responders. And their first responders are, a responder is someone who has a plan. There's an event, something's happening, we're going to go, we're going to assess it, and we have a plan because we've been here before, we've seen something similar, we know how to attack it. A reactor is somebody who is going to be driven by emotion. And especially in business, emotional intelligence is critical. More so when there's a major event happening and it's unexpected. You need to develop that sense of separating your emotions out and looking at the situation with pure logic. And that may be difficult for some. This was something I developed. It took me years to develop. But now when an event happens, it is pure logic. Everything is pushed out to the outer limits of my focus. I'm laser focused on that event. And the more heated it gets, the more calm I get, because there's a plan. We assess, we diagnose, we plan, we act, we implement. And then if it's feedback, We do the same thing all over again. It's a system. There's a system in place. No matter what happens, there's a predictable system that we're going to go through, a predictable process we're going to go through, but it's going to be very quick. It's going to be very quick and it's a repeatable. We're just inserting different variables in there until we find something that does work. And in that, preparing yourself to be a responder versus a reactor comes back to that practice, being put in those challenging positions. Go seek those out. Go to your leaders and ask them. Every organization has challenges. They might not be a high priority challenge right now, but ask about a challenge that's been lingering, that's been hanging out there, that nobody wants to touch because it's a mess. And insert yourself if you can, if you have that opportunity. Seek those challenges out, because as you develop those solutions, or you work with others to develop those solutions, you're now gaining more skill, more knowledge to be a problem solver. And that is such a valuable aspect in any organization of being a problem solver. I've had many titles and many roles in my career. The one title that I carry with me everywhere I go is I consider myself a professional problem solver, and I love it. The bigger the challenge, the more excited I get. I love a great challenge. Let's go. Let's go get a room full of creative, innovative people. Throw away the guardrails and let's just start thinking about solutions. What's the craziest way we can accomplish these things? And it's just amazing, some of the results that come out of situations like that. And change that mindset. You know, when things happen, a lot of times you'll see people going, phew, and they're out of here, you know, and they're like, whoa, the bottom just fell out, I'm gone. Walk towards it. Say, I want to learn from this. I want to help. I don't know if I can. I want to help. I want to help where I can. And oftentimes you will be put in a situation and you are able to help. But in the very start of that situation, you thought, I don't know if I could help or not, but I want to try. You'd be surprised the knowledge and the wisdom that you bring to the table, regardless of what your age is. We all carry wisdom. We all carry knowledge. And it's a certain circumstance where you're going to be that genius. And you never know when that is. So put yourself in every circumstance you can. And before you know it, you've developed this confidence that, okay, I don't care what the problem is. I'm going to run towards it because I'm going to learn something. On the other side of that, I'm going to have more in my tool belt than I did when I started. And we're going to have fun doing it. We might come out with a few scars, but we're going to have fun doing it. And oh, by the way, we're going to do it with a group of people. I'm not going to do it alone. I'm going to take people with me. So yeah, it's definitely, and that's how you build that resilience in yourself and in your team, is that challenges are nothing to be afraid of. They're something to be excited about, because that's where real change will happen. That's where we'll learn from each other. That's where we'll gain from each other, and we'll grow.
Great. We have, unfortunately, we're moving towards the last minutes of our talk, but I'll be taking 2 more questions. And I will also be posting your LinkedIn profile here so people can also interact with you. So we have a comment and a question here, which says, love what you said about feedback and responding. How do you give and respond to critical feedback with resilience? And maybe this also gets complemented by the next question. How does EQ play a role in building a resilient mindset?
Those are both really good questions. The critical feedback is be open to feedback. I would actually seek it from my leaders before we had our evaluations. About every 6 months, I would ask to have an appointment with my leader. And I would tell them, I am looking for constructive feedback. I want to know where you think I need to improve. Now, that's me inviting it. And the question was, what happens when you get critical feedback? Again, I take responsibility for that. If somebody comes at me and says, you know, Karena, the way you communicate, I just cannot stand the way you talk to people. I'm going to look internally and go, okay, let me really take a good look at this. Let me assess it. I might feel some emotion about it initially because it feels like an attack. And what I do, one of the tools I've implemented, anytime I get something that evokes emotion in me, I will not respond for 24 hours. I will allow myself to feel whatever those feelings are. I acknowledge the emotion that I'm experiencing, but I will not respond. I will not react until I have gone through whatever emotional phase I need to go through. And I've returned back to logic. And then I do and come back and say, you know what? They're right. They're right. Or I'll come back and say to myself, because it is self-awareness. It's self-awareness, and say, I think I can get better, but I don't think I was as bad as they said I was. I'm going to go talk to them more about that. And not that we're not going to argue, because they are telling you what they're seeing, what they're feeling. It's up to you how you receive it. I will always take information in, and that which I feel doesn't apply to me, I will disregard. But I'm honest about it, because oftentimes there is some truth there, and there's something I might need to work on. I might need to go and grow on. Now, you also need to identify, was this something that was constructive, or was it something that was malicious? Unfortunately, there are leaders that can use intimidating factors to try and motivate their folks. So if it's critical feedback that somebody gave you and you feel it's completely unjust, I would have another conversation, come with questions, very intentional questions, but make sure it's logic-based and not emotion-based. Because emotion-based, again, you will lose your logic, and you want to move forward in a logical manner, especially when there's critical feedback. But as an individual, I'd always look for input to improve. But again, does it align with you and your authentic self? Definitely.
Well,
And then
that's,
what was the EQ question? I'm sorry.
yeah, it was Daniel. Daniel asked this question about the EQ question. So how does EQ play a role in building a resilient mindset? Because I remember having a resilient mindset when I had really low EQ a few years back. So how can I ensure that my resilient mindset has improved along with my improved EQ?
That's really good. Well, that gets back to resilience is how you're responding and reacting to situations. Your EQ is part of that, because you're mastering your own emotions. You're in control of your own emotions and how you're going to either react or respond to that situation. The more you master that, in EQ, I think is something that I'm not sure we could ever master that. It's something that continually evolves as we evolve. We're different people every 5 to 8 to 10 years, so we have to evolve along with it. And the question was, how do I know that my EQ is evolved to strengthen my resiliency?
Yes. How it has improved. So the resilient mindset has improved. How can you know if your EQ has also evolved?
Oh, I would think based on how you feel when you're in an event, and how quickly or how slowly do your emotions come to the surface. Are you matter of fact and say, oh, you know what? The bottom just fell out of this. We're going to have to call in a special team and get this handled. Or when something happens, do you instantly go into panic mode? You recognize it, but then you're like, I need to go take a walk for 10 minutes and clear my mind. EQ is having that self-control of your emotions, and when they come forward and when you suppress those. Another factor of EQ is also how you acknowledge other people's emotions and how they're impacted and how they respond, and being empathetic to that and understanding of that. That was an area of growth for me when I was younger. I couldn't relate to other people and why they were so emotional about things. And it was through EQ that I developed an appreciation and an empathy to better understand other people and how the same event could impact them so differently, and come to appreciate that. And I think you've mastered your EQ when you're put into a situation and you have complete and utter control over your emotions. But I also think it's something that it's never a destination with EQ. In fact, Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is usually a book I have somewhere in one of my stacks around the house, because I always go back to it. I always go back. We have so much information that comes at us that things get pushed to the back. And I'm very mindful about what I want to keep in my forward thought. And an emotional or EQ is definitely there.
Well, I can say that I'm in a session with lots of learning, and one of them is really the necessity of listening to something, digesting it, not responding, at least within 24 hours, because I'm the kind of person who doesn't like confrontation, but has no problems with conflict of ideas. But sometimes that's really distressful. So lots of learning took place, but this is something I'll definitely take, and do my homework and listen to that and reflect on that. I'd really like to thank you very much, Karena, for this wonderful talk. It was a privilege to have you here with us. I'd like to thank you all for being here. And just for you to know, next week, complementing what Karena has said, dealing with emotional intelligence and logic, we're going to have Dr. Susan Spillman talking about emotional intelligence and leadership. Definitely something all leaders should learn, right? So Karena, once again, thank you very much. It was a great session, and I was very happy to have you here with us.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Right, and thank you all. Have a wonderful week, and see you next Sunday. Take care and keep safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.